I'm Rob Kirkpatrick inside the Vault at Rockin' Bowl in downtown Lafayette, and you're listening to Kirkpatrick and Company. This week we talk to Melissa Bowen about authenticity as we kick off this brand new project from a brand new space. Kirkpatrick and Company is just that. It's all about the company we keep, people in our community who are changing their industries, changing their neighborhoods, and going out of their way to make the world a better place. And I want to talk to you. If you have an idea of someone who is making a big difference in their community, it doesn't matter where they are. We'll track them down and we'll get their story. Email me at rob@kirkpatrickbrands.com. Now sit back, pour a drink, get a snack, and enjoy my conversation on authenticity with Melissa Bowen. You're listening to Kirkpatrick and Company. Melissa Bowen, welcome to the Vault.
Thank you very much, Rob.
I'm so happy that you're here. We're going to go ahead and be 100% authentic here.
Okay.
This is a re-record.
Yes.
This is a re-record of episode 1.
A well thought out and chosen action of embracing imperfections and finessing what we wanted to finesse.
Exactly. We both listened to it. There was nothing wrong with the one before, but I think there were some points we wanted to expand on. There were a couple production things I wanted to change just a little bit, but we can do that.
And I love owning it. Yeah.
Okay. So Kirkpatrick and Company, you are today's company. Melissa Bowen, by the way, tell me the initials. LPC?
LPC with an S.
Okay.
Licensed professional counselor and supervisor. So
Ooh.
I also supervise
Other counselors.
Yes.
Pretty cool. And you are with the Authenticity Center, and it's really so fitting because authenticity is something that is really core to your sort of everyday.
It has evolved over time. I'm also a Daring Way facilitator, Brene Brown research on vulnerability and shame. But when I created my own agency of counseling and coaching, I had to name it something other than Melissa Bowen LPC LLC.
Yeah.
And authenticity did feel authentic and real to me.
So you have helped me to be authentic. I think in ways where maybe as someone who's worked in marketing, worked in media, worked in radio, there's always sort of this like carefully crafted image. And one of the things since we met, which is through a mutual friend who I met years and years ago. But one of the things I really feel like you've pushed me on is like, just be yourself. You don't have to be any of those things to me. So thank you for that. But that's why I wanted you to be here for episode 1, because it's a new venture and it is a little bit scary.
Gosh, I'm so honored to that, Rob, because I think we found each other too, because we're such kindred spirits.
Yeah. I mean, look, we're wearing the same thing today. If you're watching the video, it's chambray all day. And we're both, I can't kick that high. I'm not a rockette like you. But we're both wearing white tennis shoes. We could literally be Sadie Hawkins dates today.
Yeah.
I don't have as good of bracelets or anything on today, but you're right. Kindred spirits, I think, is a cool way to say that, because part of me thinks the familiarity I've always felt with you has been your New Orleans background. And though you don't have a New Orleans accent per se, it just feels comfortable. Like, do you remember years ago that movie? It was like a documentary called The Pharmacist, and he was from Chalmette.
New Orleans East.
Yes.
Yes.
And I heard his voice. I wasn't living in Louisiana at the time. I had been away for several years, and like I just heard, before I even saw him, and I heard his voice, and it just felt like coming home to your pillow after you've been on like a 2-week trip. It just felt comfortable. So I think that's why I'm comfortable with you.
Well, and I like that we can be open with each other about our insecurities, about our dreams, and the things that we want for our life experience. I think it's been a good friendship. I enjoy it.
This is why you're here, because I'm just talking about your accent, and you're like, well, everything else in our life also lines up. So you went on a little bit of a deep dive. We started having this conversation about it really came down to holidays. Like, we were talking about the anticipation of doing something. This project, for example, was many months and weeks in the process, ordering equipment, getting new spaces set up, getting the sound right in this room. And then you have to do it. Like, D-Day happens, you have to do it, you have to press record. And it's weird because there's just such a build up to it. And you brought up holidays and how the build up to holidays, like a Christmas or even New Year's, Valentine's Day, birthdays.
Yes, projects, any projects. Yeah.
Yes. So let's talk about that a little bit. And, you know, I'll give you an insurance card after. I'll pay a copay.
Exactly.
But like, when we were talking about these things, you know, how do you talk people through these? Because it really is a chemical thing. It is a serotonin, a dopamine thing.
Yeah, I've learned the physiology of it
Okay.
is legitimate. So dopamine, I've learned, is the chemical of anticipation and motivation,
Okay.
the promise of reward. It's why we get addicted to social media, scrolling, or our notifications because we're getting the dopamine hits of the reward is in the next thing. It's coming.
Ooh.
And it also makes why the planning of vacations, the planning of a beautiful business project like this, dopamine is a extended release
Okay.
because you're always looking for the reward. You're planning towards the excitement of something. So the journey really is the beautiful thing in our lives.
When it actually happens,
Mm, the anticipation of
the
it.
anticipation of it happening is where the joy lives.
Yes. The problem with when we don't understand the difference, serotonin is the pleasure receptive.
Okay.
So, and that is in the moment.
Okay.
So, when we rely too much on the looking forward, the planning, the anticipation of something, and then the thing comes, the birthday party, my 40th, womp womp, the
And you
Disney
probably had
vacation,
really high hopes for it.
high hopes it was going to be the most epic birthday ever.
Yeah.
And I want to apologize to almost anybody who was at that party, but I was
Was it not epic? What was wrong with it?
my expectation now when I look back on it, it was
It was a
perfect.
great thing.
Yes,
Yeah.
it was perfect. But what I wasn't present. I was in my expectation of the thing. And so
Yeah.
there's serotonin, that's the pleasure receptive. And so what we need to practice doing is being present even in this moment, because then this will be satisfying, grounded. It's not flashy like the expectation of reward.
Yeah.
It's just good being present.
So is it something as simple as like, let's feel this chair we're in? Like our feet are on this ground. It's on a rug that is helping to absorb the sound in the vault, the new
Mhm.
podcast studio. Just appreciating this for what it is, not what it's going to look like when it's posted, how it's going to edit it.
Yeah.
This is where it is.
Yeah, I mean, like, take a look around and see where you are. It's great.
I was texting with you yesterday and I mentioned something about slot machines and casinos
Mhm.
because I'm a sucker, by the way, for like beautiful um production on a slot machine.
Mhm.
There's so much like IP, like intellectual property now, Wizard of Oz and Deal or No Deal when you go to casinos, and the Buffalo, it's just beautiful. The sound is good, the
Mhm.
lights are good, and I can totally see that what draws me to it is like, oh, I could easily win $1 million. And it's that anticipation that's fun. And then even when you do, okay, if it's never been $1 million, even when it's $200,
Mhm.
you have to go back to doing it. Like, I'll tell you, this is the
Because of the
difference between
anticipation
me
of
and
it.
my wife. She would win $200 and be like, goodbye. I beat him. I'm out of here. And I'm like, but if it was that easy to win 200, I
There's
could
more.
play for twice as long and make 400. And it's like, no, it's not a job. It doesn't work that way. It's not hours worked.
Yeah. I was in the French Quarter this weekend and
Yeah.
there was a clothing shop that had all the colors, different fabrics, and I wanted literally to buy so many things, but I know what happens to me is I get drawn to the splash, the whatever, and I have to figure out what this is now that we're talking
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah.
Because when I get it home and it's in my closet, it's like, well, I don't really need it.
But see, I'll tell you, can I put on
Yes, please.
I'm going to put on my fake LPC. Okay.
Okay.
FLPC. The French Quarter, Melissa, where everyone else is living their life and there are bubbles everywhere and music out of everything, would wear the super colorful, crazy thing because
Yes.
it like reminds you of that thing.
Yeah.
But I feel like you come back to your regular life and you're like, what was I thinking?
So it's the person like that you want to be.
Yeah.
That, yeah. If you
You know,
didn't
I
have
have
the
a velvet.
societal expectation.
I have a velvet tuxedo jacket. It's blue velvet, and I bought it for Washington D.C. Mardi Gras.
I was gonna say you also have a
And I
very
wore it.
big cowboy hat.
I have a big Western hat too, but I bought it to wear it there, and it was great there. I'm in Washington D.C. It's Mardi Gras. You can get away with it. I was wearing some ridiculous pin or something, and then I've worn it one time since I got back here. It
Yeah.
did not feel like it did there.
Yeah.
And the Western hat too. I will say the Western hat though, it comes with its own personality and it does transcend location. Because I've worn it to meetings with you where I had to get things done
Mm-hmm.
and it commands attention.
I even wore it.
You-
I felt like a
you
different
have it on.
person. Yes.
There was something that crossed my mind too, and we were talking about the serotonin and really like the anticipation or knowing those things. Would this be the same category that like the phantom phone vibrations in your pocket? Do you know about this?
No.
Like, because, well, and maybe it's different for women because you have a purse and maybe your phone's more often in a purse than in your pocket. But my phone's always in my pocket. When I'm anticipating a phone call, I, throughout the
Mm,
time of anticipating a phone call, feel it vibrate. And so you check and
mm,
it didn't vibrate. There's nothing. It wasn't
right.
even a different notification. But like,
You're
because I
imagining
know
it,
it's
you're
happening,
creating it.
it's
Mhm.
there.
Well, I mean, the brain does create stories. I mean, we can do that mentally. I imagine like, we can do it physically too,
Yeah.
I imagine.
So interesting. So I find you to be a really inspiring person. The Kirkpatrick and Company model was really me wanting to talk to people who inspire me, who entertain me, or who are innovating in their space. You know, I want to talk to the actual person. It's the reason we're sitting this way. We're sitting in chairs. Is like a little bit more vulnerable than sitting across a table
Hmm.
because it really feels like an interview. Like I can see your whole body language. You
Yeah.
can't swing your feet because I can see that. You can't mess with your fingers.
Yes, I am.
But
Yes, I am.
that was what was really important to me with this project because I do think, especially when it comes to success, we only ever see that final product. You
Hmm.
only see, let's just go to the nth degree. Like you only see Elon Musk, the head of SpaceX and Tesla and everything else, a Jeff Bezos, the head of Amazon, the Washington Post. You only see that. You don't often get to see the trend that happened where it's never linear. People get
No.
a ton of
The messy
no's along the
middle,
way.
the messy,
The messy
messy
middle.
middle, the true evolution. We only talk to people when we think they have something to say because they've done it and they have an answer.
Yeah.
And even any of us think I don't have something to say until I'm finished or I have an answer or I've achieved something.
Yeah.
And then I think real people in our lives or who do emulate us or follow us for whatever reason or want to learn from us, they don't get the true story that even right now, my business is in evolution. My business is in such the awkward tween year
Okay.
right now. It is the equivalent of a butt cut in third grade. I know the picture that my business is in right now.
Okay.
But we don't talk about it because it's awkward. I don't feel like I have anything to truly celebrate yet.
Mhm.
And some of that,
And does it feel a little bit like a failure because you wish it was further along?
yeah, fortunately, I've done my shame work, so
Yeah.
I know that voice is not accurate. But it does. We can get caught up in comparison. It should be like that, or should I be doing it like that?
Yeah.
And then that takes us out of being authentic to ourselves. It takes us out of the journey that we're on.
Hmm.
Um, and I'll say that, that I am on. But so I think it's good to talk about. This is a first for you, this
Yeah.
podcast, as much success as you have. And I love that we came back to do part two
Mhm.
because, as Brene Brown calls it, the shitty first draft. We're allowed to have, excuse me, a shitty first draft
Yeah.
and then finesse it and refine it. And
Mm.
I don't even want to say perfect it,
Yeah.
but to, I don't know, improve it and make it what we want it to be, not because it has to be perfect for other people to approve of us, but because we love it ourselves.
Yeah.
That is, let me rephrase that just a second, because I do like to teach people to say, do things because you love yourself, not because you want other people to love you.
Oh.
So
Is it almost like doing something because it just makes you happy in the moment? It doesn't have to necessarily make money. It doesn't have to necessarily be
there's,
perfect.
yes, there's 100% joy in that. I mean, yes, we want to make money, but I guess do things because they're more internally motivated, not externally forced on us.
You know, I think you just hit the nail on the head that you don't even realize. And the reason I was actually so delayed in ever doing a podcast project is because, 5 years ago, I was doing radio full time. I was doing 3 hours every single day, 15 hours a week. And once I was done with that, I was so done. I just felt like I didn't have anything left to say. I was talked out
Hmm.
and everything else. And I think maybe before that, I sort of looked at the whole podcast world as just kind of in disarray, confusing, maybe a little bit amateur because I was doing it in a completely different way.
Hmm.
But the reason I finally said yes to this was for the conversation, was because I'm in a coaching group with you and we would sit together around a round table and talk about different metrics for success. Three of us might be doing something that looks great on the financial side,
Hmm.
yet someone in the group, they might have grown their email distribution list by 100 potential prospects. And so I think appreciating all those and saying like, continuing to do it for another day. You know, one of our mutual friends, one of our mutual friends, Michelle Robertson,
Mhm.
always talks about the carrot because she knew whenever I left corporate life to start with, it was all I ever knew. And those opportunities continue to float my way,
The
or
dangling carrot.
I'll do a consulting job and they'll ask what my interest is in joining the company in that role. And it looks great on paper.
Mhm.
It looks excellent. But what Michelle knows is that I like to work with a bunch of different companies and a bunch of different projects. And so, despite what the carrot looks like,
Right.
whether it's money, whether it's prestige, whether it's the company I'm working for, this just feels so much more genuine and authentic to come back to that
And
word.
that's going to be satisfying more long
Yeah.
term than anything, any carrot we go running after.
Is it almost like a blood sugar thing? Like, eating things that just, you don't have that spike and fall. You're just going,
Yes.
you know?
Yeah. Satisfaction is kind of a slow burn.
Yeah.
True fulfillment is a slow burn. It's not like the dopamine rush, the next notification, the next scroll, the next sparkly object. I think true contentment and satisfaction is and fulfillment is just like it's not as glitzy.
Yeah.
And so that takes a second to kind of take it in and appreciate it.
I want to talk about you because
Okay.
this is the counseling side of you is a second career.
Yes.
You worked in hospitality in New Orleans. Um, I want you to tell me a little bit about that, how you ended up here, because it's almost surprising to me that this is a second career for you because it feels like you've always been that calm voice and reassurance as a counselor and a realist at the same time. You're not a yes woman in my life at all.
I love that. Thank you.
You're not.
I try not to be.
And so anyway, tell us how you got here.
Okay, well, it's surprising to me too, because I've never had a dream where I can't wait to be this, or it started off 18 years old bartending in New Orleans. So I guess I've always been a counselor of some sort.
Yes.
But yeah, it landed me in restaurant management, event planning, big wedding planning, and corporate meetings in Seattle on a cruise ship. Stayed in there up there for 10 years, and when I moved home to be with my family
Wait a second. 10 years?
in Seattle.
I did not know about this.
Yes.
I mean, I knew you had friends up there and you've gone up there
That's
recently
where
and did a big
I feel like I grew
surprise.
up.
Okay.
I feel like I came to myself there. Like talk about the DC Mardi Gras hat.
Yeah.
I feel like when I go to Seattle, it feels like me.
Okay.
And it allowed it. I grew up there in a way that allowed me to have the strength to come home
Mhm.
and be in Louisiana more confidently. Me
Yeah.
in a big family in the places of the people that knew you when
Yeah. Yeah.
and be more me.
Which I think is one of the coolest parts about growing up. I love to reconnect with someone who knew me 15 years ago
Hmm.
because we still have that in common. I think sometimes moving on or people like leaving your life, it just has such like a bad feeling, like a bad breakup,
Yeah.
but people come back around.
Mhm.
Like I
The
anyway,
ones who are meant to, the ones who are
yes.
meant to, because like our friends Mike and Jackie,
Yeah.
they were friends of mine in college. My husband, shoot, yeah, friends of mine in college. Years of distance, and then come back around, and now they're my favorite people. Anyway,
Yeah, yeah.
okay, so yeah, I came back to Louisiana to be with my family in 2001, and started working at the corporate office of Ruth's Chris Steakhouse. It was still Louisiana based. But then Katrina hit and the corporate office moved to Florida,
Mhm.
and they said that we could have our jobs, but it would
You'd
require
have to go
moving to
there.
Florida.
Yeah.
And so that was when I got counseling and coaching. That counselor guided me on what did I love about all my jobs, what did I not like, what did it look like, what would be like dipping a toe in the water of trying something new and scary. So I took a class that looked like counseling, and then I went back to school at 39 years old to get my master's in counseling at UL. That's where I got my bachelor's at USL, my master's at UL.
Mhm. And what
Um,
was your bachelor's in? Was it hospitality, general studies?
no, I think It was dance at first. I got
Okay.
a scholarship in dance. That's
Yes.
how I started. I
Yes.
think it went to PR, and I think it ended up in mass communications.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So another little crossroads we have with each other.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Yeah.
So then I got my master's and I have loved this job ever since. I do. I love it. If it does feel natural to me. And even now it still evolves. I've been in solo private practice. I've been in agencies. I'm doing speaking and teaching in corporate places now. And even now, developing the Authenticity Center is my or its next evolution with building a community of clinically skilled, comfortable, compassionate counselors for the community.
I want to ask because we're not going to give away your age, but obviously you went back.
56. I'm owning it, dude.
You're owning it.
Well, I'm not 56 yet. I'm
You're getting
55.
close.
Yes.
Okay, so that's like 16 years since you decided to go back. Is that how
Mhm.
that math works out? If you were 39.
I got out of math to do
Okay,
counseling.
in any case, the difference has happened, changed really fast. I mean,
Mhm.
honestly, even in the last 10 years, the conversation around mental health has changed.
Thank goodness.
The idea of it being a weakness to seek out therapy
It's
has
curvy.
changed.
Mhm.
Um, how have you seen that in people? Because I would imagine 10 years ago, now I'm someone who's relatively new to therapy too. It's been a couple years. So I didn't necessarily feel the full brunt of the stigma. When you were first doing counseling, or even when you were still in school, it was a big deal to admit
Yeah.
in a world that wasn't as accepting as it is now.
And there still is huge stigma. Really, just in a couple of months ago, the three quotes I got from people in my world: I'm not that crazy. My friends are helping me just fine. And I don't have time for that.
Mm,
All myths in all of it.
yeah.
You don't have to be crazy to want counseling. We just need support in any given time in our lives. Frankly, we don't have time to not get that support in our lives. We're wasting time. The statistic is the average person waits 11 years to get support from the onset of a mental health symptom. 11
Man.
years. And then your friends, yeah, your friends are the bomb, but they're not trained and they're not objective. So I do it really, I think COVID and quarantine kind of pushed us into we don't have time for the stigma anymore.
Yeah.
We're getting anxious. And so I think the stigma is definitely decreasing, which I'm so glad we're talking about it. There's Instagram influencers, which is a whole other, social media topic, but I love that we're able to talk about it and people aren't afraid to talk about it. Mental health in the workforce. There's employee assistance programs, team development. That mental health means mental strength and mental acuity. And that means high mental performance in anything, your relationships, your profession. So I'm all for
Do
it.
you think that maybe the COVID impact was the fact that were conditioned in that time to do more things outside of our box because maybe we weren't going into the office. So we were working from home. You were able to explore things remotely a little bit easier. And I know people do counseling that way. Some people only do remote counseling.
Yeah,
There are entire companies that is
all
100%
telehealth.
remote.
Well, yeah, I know I'm half and half in person and telehealth. Some of us never went back,
Yeah.
but interesting. So the COVID quarantine experience, it did two things. On the one side, we got so bored, we got into creativity, TikTok videos, bread
Sourdough bread.
making. Yes, the bread making.
I still, by the way, have that on my bucket list. I never got the sourdough starter down,
Hmm.
and I really want to do it.
And we slowed down to the point of realizing, oh, we really can have boundaries. I really don't have to do everything. And look how blissful it is. So that was
Mm,
one side. Unfortunately, the other side did develop into addictions, anxiety, and domestic violence.
yeah.
And so,
Because sometimes that contact with the outside world was the barometer
yes,
that you'd realize this isn't, not
yeah,
everyone is dealing with this.
yeah.
Wow.
But either way, I love that conversations are being had, movements being made across state lines to make it more accessible. Insurance, we're still, hoping that they will keep advocating for it to make it accessible to more people.
I just want to thank you for being so authentic in yourself to talk about those challenges because you probably do see the other side of people who don't talk about things,
Yeah.
who just sort of let's just wait it out till people forget about it enough that we just move on and then it's truly never dealt with. Can I hit you with a lightning round of questions
Yeah.
before we wrap
Can I
up?
say one thing?
You may.
I am in therapy myself. That would be the most vulnerable, to be able to admit for myself. I have sought therapy in multiple seasons of my life, including most recently. So for my own like travel anxiety and some other general anxieties,
Yeah.
and it helps. It works. It's good.
Okay, so is part of your travel anxiety treatment like to travel? Can we go somewhere? I'm down.
Yes.
Can we go?
Yeah.
Let's go.
Okay.
All right, lightning round.
Okay.
You ready?
No.
If I were to give you an hour to do absolutely anything, you did not have to be productive. It's just an hour. And maybe just say it doesn't even exist. I'm just giving you a free hour of nothing. What are you watching or reading or snacking on?
I'm probably sitting in a hammock reading whatever book somebody else recommended because I don't really read all that great, but it's a goal.
Okay.
I'm sitting in a hammock with a cat and ducks. And if I'm watching, right now it's Severance.
Ooh.
I wish I had a smarter answer,
It
but
was
that's
too
what,
weird for me. I couldn't get into
it's
Severance.
so weird. Yeah.
I know.
But I'd be sitting outside probably or napping.
Okay, if I could wave a magic wand
Mhm,
and give you yet another career, a third career path,
mhm,
what
mhm.
do you think it would be?
I'm the dream has always been Broadway acting and musicals. And
Okay.
fortunately I do get to do it
And you
here
do it
locally. I
locally.
do. I love it. So I think maybe that. Or no, you know what? I want to work at Lolly's Chocolates.
Oh,
Just a plug.
good chocolate covered pretzels there. It's my
Yes.
favorite thing.
And the peanut butter. Yes.
And the peanut butter.
That's my next career.
What is one book that you think everyone should read at least one time?
For leisure, the one that got me reading was A Prayer for Owen Meany by John Irving. It's the one that made me laugh out loud and cry out loud. For true self-reflection, development, and groundedness is Brene Brown's Daring Greatly. Or Gifts of Imperfection, because that's tools.
And that's important.
Yes.
Imperfection is a real deal. What's the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
March to the Beat of Your Own Drum. It was given to me by my sophomore English teacher, Jean Gill. She even gave me a little plaque, and I thought I'd never thought that I wasn't, but I knew that I wasn't. This is kind of a weird way to say it, but I just like, okay, I didn't know that I could be given permission to do that.
That's good.
Yeah.
And finally, what's next on your bucket list?
Bucket list?
Yeah. Like, what do you think?
Well, I'm developing the Authenticity Center to be a community of counselors larger than me. We're expanding the office. So professionally, that. I'm gonna have to really think on that because if it's a big bucket, it would be good to have a big bucket.
Yeah.
Little buckets is little travels, going camping in Seattle with a friend, maybe hitting the Saints game up there. I have a lot of little buckets.
Yeah.
And
those are okay.
meeting with you is one. So
Wow.
honored.
Well, thank you for coming by.
Yeah.
We're going to call this episode 1A,
Okay.
1 Authentic.
Dig it.
Do you dig that?
Yes.
All right. Thank you for coming by.
Rob, thanks for having me always.
And thank you for being the first in the vault.
This is a pretty badass space. I gotta admit.
Thank you.
You've created something pretty cool.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Kirkpatrick and Company is recorded live inside the vault at Rock and Roll in downtown Lafayette. Find full episodes on YouTube, Facebook, and wherever you listen to podcasts.